Welcome, everyone, to the Fortimize Focus series. I'm Jim Collins, your moderator for today's virtual event and a member of the Fortimize Banking Advisory Board. I'm joined on today's call by Larson Chung, our banking industry leader at Fortimize, who was instrumental in getting this series up and running. We're excited to have all of you on the first ever webinar of this series, as we are going to have an excellent conversation about accelerating digital engagement with our four esteemed panelists. But before we meet our panelists, I want to discuss the purpose of the Fortimize Focus series. We are creating a learning series to support a community of peer banks and credit unions, and to help this community build out their ever-changing digital transformation roadmaps. And along the way, we're going to share best practices and innovative ideas based on true experience to help each other succeed, especially during these unprecedented times we are experiencing with this global pandemic. This is going to be an enlightening series for everyone, and today is just the beginning. Now, let's meet our panelists and learn more about them and their organizations. First, Jennifer Frost from Customers Bank. Jennifer, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. Happy to be here. I'm Jennifer Frost. I'm from Customers Bank. I am the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer of the bank. I oversee banking operations, PMO, a lot of strategic technology investment that we make in the bank. Customers Bank is a $15 billion asset bank. We're based out of Pennsylvania, but we have a wide reach through the Northeast region of the country, and we have gone nationwide. Breaking into different markets like the Chicago market, DC. So we have a unique model here at Customers where we are high tech, high touch. We only have about 12 branches right now, and it requires us to be a very, very digital bank. So that's a little bit about Customers Bank right now. Jim, back to you.
Great, Jen, thanks. And from my understanding, you're also in charge of the digital transformation at the bank. Is that true?
Yes, I am. Forgot that little detail.
Little detail. Could add a lot of value to today's call. So thanks, Jennifer. We appreciate it. Next up, Frank Monahan from First Colonial Bank in New Jersey. Frank is joining us via phone today. So Frank, little introduction.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Frank Monahan with First Colonial Community Bank. I am the bank's Chief Operating Officer. We're a $600 million bank located in South Jersey. We service the local South Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware market. We have 2 branches, currently have 77 team members, and have recently, at the beginning of this year, had a CEO transition with Bob White coming on board in February of 2020.
Great, Frank, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and it's good to have a Chief Operating Officer on board for today's panel. Now over to Dee Benoit from Orrstown Bank. Dee?
Thanks, Jim. I come to you today from Orrstown Bank. We are a $2.8 billion community bank. We are throughout Pennsylvania and Maryland. We are over 100 years of building relationships with our clients, and I'm very happy to be here today. I am the Chief Information Officer at Orrstown Bank, so accelerating digital strategy is right up my alley.
That's awesome. It's good to have a CIO on the panel, and it's excellent to hear about the history, 100 years of Orrstown Bank. So I'm sure a lot of transformation over those years, Dave. So good to hear. Thank you. And last but not least, Zach Lloyd from Fulton Bank. Zach, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Zach Lloyd. I'm with Fulton Bank. We are a little bit over 21 billion in assets. We operate out of 200 financial centers across the 5-state footprint, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and then heading down south. I oversee IT business services for Fulton Bank. So my department within IT really focuses on identifying and defining digital solutions and other solutions and rolling them out enterprise-wide. So happy to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great, Zach, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And it's great to have an IT expert and a wide variety geographical area that Fulton Bank covers, I think is good for the discussion today. So thanks for being here today. Folks, as you can see, today we have representation from all different asset size organizations. And we think this is going to be very helpful for our audience to hear from different perspectives. and how these different organizations are tackling digital engagement and different challenges that they faced thus far. So let's get into our discussion. And please, from an audience perspective, feel free during the discussion, if you have any questions, to utilize the Ask Question or Chat function within Zoom. And we will do our best to make sure your questions get to our panelists. And if we don't answer them during the session, we'll be sure to get back to you. So the panelists and I just discussed, what should we lead off with digital engagement? And we felt that one of the trigger events was PPP when this all began. So our first set of questions is going to be around PPP and how the accelerating digital engagement actually occurred in each of these institutions. So Jennifer, I'll start off with you. And has PPP accelerated any part of your digital transformation roadmap? And did you guys adopt any new technology or workflows to deal with that application process?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. PPP absolutely accelerated parts of our digital transformation. There were plans that we had made to do in 2020, and everything kind of got blown out of the water with PPP. And then we had to refocus little things we had on the shelf, little innovation items like end-to-end digitization, that we were going to pilot and work on, we've had on the shelf, we had to pull off the shelf. We did 103,000 PPP loans. About 50,000 of them actually went on our core. So we had to get bulk upload software up and running in 2 weeks. That took a team of us just working together, day and night to get that working. Things like DocuSign, which a lot of banks probably had on their roadmap, but a lot of pushback from the risk team and everybody, that's just not used to digital signatures. Man, I got that thing approved in 48 hours. It was like, boom, done. So luckily we had that on the shelf. We could pull it out and just roll it out very quickly. Remote workforce, we had Teams, Microsoft Teams on our deck to roll out here later in 2020. But again, everybody went remote very quickly, and we just had to go very quickly with the remote or the Teams rollout. So those are some of the things that, just really bumped up in priority for us because of PPP. We had to be able to collaborate very quickly and get the whole bank collaborating around how we were going to process this volume for our small business.
Sure. And it sounds like DocuSign was one of those technology tools that you had on the roadmap, but had to accelerate that in order to get it through for the PPP application process.
Yeah, I would say all three of those were ones that were going to come later in 2020, but we had little time to just get it done. So it worked out really well, I have to say. I'm sure the other panelists will probably talk about it. It removed a lot of the red tape that we typically trip over ourselves as bankers, and we just had to get it done for the good of, getting this money out to our businesses. It was just an imperative.
Sure. Good, Jennifer, thank you. Great perspective, appreciate it. Frank, how about from your perspective? You're a smaller local bank in South Jersey. Did PPP accelerate anything on your digital transformation roadmap, or did you guys put in at least any new workflows to help with the application process?
Yes, and I think in line with what Jennifer had said, that before things would just take a lot longer to roll out. There was a lot more kind of due diligence being done on them. We didn't have the luxury to do that with PPP. It was kind of rolled out without the rules being finalized, and they kind of adjusted as it went on for the first couple of weeks there. But we needed to adapt in order to try to get that money for our customers. So we did do about 350 PPP loans for about 48 million. DocuSign was something in line with what Jennifer said that we did not implement prior to, but it was rolled out very quickly and worked well. And now we're continuing to roll new products out with DocuSign for cash management agreements and other agreements that we're working on. We didn't partner with any fintech, so from a really accelerating the digital side on the application and things like that, it really didn't change anything. But having the remote workforce at that time, it did make us kind of utilize technology to make sure that we can get those applications in. And those first couple weeks, the SBA system was crashing constantly, so it required people to work later at night, kind of off hours, seemed to get applications in a lot quicker. And we all knew that the money wasn't going to last that long, so I think it only did last about 10 to 14 days for that first tranche. So it was kind of adapt and make it work, or you were going to miss out.
A great point.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
We have a question from the audience, right, to see if we want to work that through our next couple of discussions. Question from Richard. With your bank employees working remote, did you have established software and processes for this, or was it all quickly addressed due to COVID?
Oh, great question. Perfect ties right into Frank's, comment about, having to work with a remote workforce and trying to get them to field process. So Frank, do you want to field that question? Did your team have anything in place in order to be able to work remotely like that?
I mean, we had a business continuity plan and we did testing on it, but I mean, no testing was as thorough as actually getting thrown into that environment. So I think the 2 or 3 weeks prior to that second week in March, a lot more testing was done, kind of a teams-based approach on the retail and on the kind of deposit operations, the loan operations team were rolled out. We had to deploy some more equipment in order to make sure that everybody had laptops that were deemed to be kind of critical personnel from an operations standpoint. So we did have processes in place, but they needed to be fine-tuned. And until you actually got put in that situation, you're never able to fully test it. So we had something, but in order to roll it out, it did require a lot of work for those 2 or 3 weeks. And there was little problems here and there, and getting your Fedline wires and stuff like that. It's always easier to do it from inside the office by where we have like the wire room. But I think everything worked extremely well, and having those plans in place required you to adjust them, but not start from scratch.
And Frank, you bring up a great point. We were all living our BCP, right? We were all living our business continuity plans. And the one factor that I love that you brought up was about, the banks were scrambling, everybody was scrambling, and then we get it into the SBA and their technology crashes. So how do we adapt to that? How do we adopt? I mean, it was a crazy time, but thank you for sharing your experience. Dee, over to you from Morristown.
Yeah, we had a lot of the same challenges that others have experienced with the PPP. We elected to utilize our existing loan origination system and then just put additional resources and processes in place to handle that influx of we handled over 3,000 loans during that period of time. But more so than PPP affecting our digital transformation, I would say COVID has been a bigger player in affecting our digital strategy, because behaviors of our clients and behaviors because of the economic environment and the pandemic have changed, not only temporarily, but forever. So the way we approach our clients and the technology that they have adopted over the past 6 months has changed our business and our business model likely forever. So we're really approaching our digital strategy, taking a step back and saying, what is it going to look like even after normal happens? Because once your clients adopt that technology and the digital strategy, they realize there's efficiency and want more. So how do we better engage going forward?
Yep, so their expectations change. So this global pandemic and COVID has really changed the expectations of all of your customers right now. So
that's right.
Great feedback. Thank you, Dee. Zach, Fulton, largest bank on our panel from an asset size, so I'm sure you guys were faced with many challenges during PPP. How did you guys handle it, and did it change anything in your digital transformation roadmap?
Yeah, so certainly it was quite the challenge, and I appreciate very much Dee's comments about COVID and PPP. And when I talk about PPP, I talk about it as kind of a monumental shift in the way that banks think. And it was a use case that allowed us to apply kind of methodologies that we had always been afraid of and prove out that they work. So more so than just the technology we use to solve PPP. If you think of PPP, think about what we all went through. This forced digital adoption. All of a sudden, we went from, handful of customers like to interact with us digitally to everybody wants to interact with us digitally. When you think about digital transformation, you think about digital technology, one thing that I always say is synonymous with digital transformation, digital technology is agility, the ability to move quickly. And so COVID facilitated that digital transformation. PPP slapped all of the banks in the face and said, now you got to move faster. You've got to get faster with risk. You've got to get faster with the way you solve problems. You got to get faster with the way you build, the way you test, the way you promote. And so while we utilized a lot of the same technologies, we utilized DocuSign, we utilized UiPath, we had some robotics that we had built to help the process. We have an enterprise integration platform, Dell Boomi, that we utilize. We had been utilizing those things in the past, but PPP really provided that wake-up call, that shot in the arm that said, okay, we've got to move much faster than we have ever moved before, and that's going to require the bank to shift its thinking. And when I look at PPP from an industry perspective, I think what it did really well was it proved to banks that you can think digitally, you can be fast, you can accept some of this risk that you feared. And certainly we experienced that, and I think every bank on this call probably experienced that. And now the question is, how do you harness that and take that going forward to help accelerate your digital transformation?
Zach, great comments. And I know we have some questions from the audience based on yours and Dee's comments. But one thing I want to touch on is agility. And you're right. I think everyone, whether we wanted to be agile or not, and not only in our tech stacks and the way we operate technology, but everybody, risk, compliance. I think, Frank mentioned that before about how, we had to get things through really fast. So we had to make sure that compliance was on board. So talk a little bit about the agility process at Fulton and how you guys changed it, during PPP.
Yeah, prior to PPP, we did not have a specified agile team or aligned product team to DocuSign or or Dell Boomi to solve for SBA lending. We quickly stood one up, as you can imagine. That happened very quickly, and we started executing. We have some experience with Agile, so we just started executing through that. But for me, when I'm thinking about agility, the bigger piece of agility was accepting risk. We were moving so quickly, we had to make risk-based decisions that we would typically not have had to make, and it really made a lot of us feel very uncomfortable. But we got through it, and I think we can all sit here on the other side of this and look back and say, we were all okay. All those bad things that we thought were going to happen, and I'm not saying that things didn't happen. Sure. We had hiccups along the way, but the reality was because we had swarmed and created an agile team, we were able to react to problems and solve them within hours, minutes, days, sometimes, as opposed to months. We had to build integrations to our core system prior to PPP. An integration to our core system required us to get our core provider put in place. It accelerated our use of Dell Boomi. We said, okay, we're going to build this integration ourselves. We're going to get this published, and we're going to use it, and we did it. But yeah, we had to swarm to the problem. We created an agile team. We executed in sprints. Some of those sprints ran 3 days as opposed to your typical 2 weeks. We followed the methodology, and we're able to accelerate very quickly.
Zach, thank you. A very successful implementation of an agile culture on the fly. So yeah. Very impressive. Great job with that. Larson, I think we had a couple questions that came through, or a question? No, maybe not. I apologize. So going back, Zach, talking about, I'm going to stay with you for a second on PPP, the forgiveness process. Everybody's still a little bit up in the air. How do you see it playing out in your organization, the forgiveness process, between now and the end of the year and within the first quarter?
Yeah, I think we're starting to hit a little bit of our stride here with forgiveness, just in sense of I think the SBA is finally being a little bit more forthcoming with information. We struggled quite a bit. We tried to attack forgiveness with the same, that same velocity and ferocity, if you will, that we attacked the application process. But the SBA was, as everyone knows, not as forthcoming with information on forgiveness. And so it was a little more difficult for us to build and plan. But we've been able to utilize our DocuSign solution. We've been able to build out a workflow. That workflow is from end to end. The forgiveness requests come in. We walk them through all the different options. They come in. They're processed on the back end. We're able to then automatically transmit them to the SBA. So the SBA's portal has been very helpful. I think for us, the biggest challenge right now is the number of customers that are requesting forgiveness and not having customers aren't necessarily beating our doors down. We have some, but, I think our response rate is somewhere in the 20% as far as, customers that have come to us and requested forgiveness, and I think that's pretty standard. So we're still trying to get more customer feedback to help inform our process and to continue to improve our process. But the team has already been established as part of forgiveness, and we just kind of carried it over. So I feel really strongly that it really doesn't matter kind of what curveballs come down. We've already put a team in place that we feel very, very confident can solve any problem that comes up or any issue that comes up and can solve it very quickly.
That's great. So having the right agile process in place is going to help you be able to manage through whatever the government throws our way as we head into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Zach, thank you. Dee, from your perspective at Orrstown, and then I do have a question specifically for you from one of our audience members. Dee, what about forgiveness at Orrstown? How are you guys handling this process as it plays out?
Yeah, so because of the origination, we did, after the big pump of that was over, we did look at fintech solutions for forgiveness. But ultimately, what we decided was to, again, approach this in-house. So we are utilizing our loan origination system along with PowerShell scripts to be able to pre-fill the Adobe application, send it out to our clients via mass email with our core data that we have on file, and pre-fill a lot of that information for them, and then allow them to submit back at their convenience. Much like Zach, we are not seeing a large amount of our clients jumping at sending that information back, because I think a lot of them are waiting for the federal guidance on forgiveness, if it's going to be forgiven and what that due diligence around that is going to look like. We are one of the 2% of the financial institutions that have submitted the forgiveness through the API. And we actually today just got our very first approval and payment for that very first one that we sent. So it's been a slow go. We are ready, and hopefully we can get through this and get forgiveness for all of our clients.
Excellent, great. So the questions that came through for you, Dee, the one question: what types of technology are you most focusing right now on bringing to Orrstown, and what's your loan operating system that you currently use?
Yeah, so we're focused on modernized solutions. We have a lot of solutions at the bank that just don't have the openness and the API to be able to have a frictionless system for our clients. That is what we're focused on going forward. We are a relationship bank, and we're used to having that personal touch, but with the current environment, we have to look for ways for having that interaction be more digital. So we're looking at a new loan origination system as one, and having a client portal interaction from beginning to end through submission of the information, through automatic spreads, out through digital signatures, and boarding that information to the core. So we're looking at a very frictionless system for the commercial lending, but also looking at our CRM, looking at our other solutions for that modernization, and make sure we have open APIs to be able to transfer information from solution to solution without duplication of efforts and keying and data in multiple places.
Makes
the
sense.
loan origination system that we're using today is Baker Hill, and it's the original Baker Hill, not the Baker Hill Next Gen. So it has a pretty good workflow, staging, and pipeline reporting, and we are able to extract data from that system, but there is just not a very good API and automatic, frictionless, modern approach to that solution.
Makes sense. And Dee, one of the points you made earlier that I just want to reemphasize with the audience, when you started about forgiveness again, you pre-filled the applications and pre-filled that for your customers. So data integrity is very important. So you didn't leave that to chance. So you made sure that that was taken care of.
We knew we had some data integrity opportunities, let's say. So we started looking at that a couple months before we started sending the applications out to say, This is where the emails are going to go. This is the lender that we have on file. This is the email address and business phone and contact information we have for each of those clients. So our relationship lenders really had to do some scrubbing and data integrity cleanup of that before we could make this successful.
Makes sense. That's a great approach. Great job. Frank, how about from First Colonial's perspective for forgiveness? How are you guys handling this process? How do you think it's going to play out? I know it's all up in the air, but how are you handling it from your size organization?
Yes, I think we're doing well. We've submitted about 25% of our loan applications in for forgiveness. We have a dedicated person that is working on forgiveness. She was very involved in the application process, so very familiar with most of the customers that did take the PPP loans. We did have our lenders more involved on the application side. They are involved a little bit on the forgiveness side, but we figured that it's really not a lending area. So they're focusing more on trying to generate new loan volume right now. So they're involved when they need to be, but we do have the person who's kind of really reaching out to those customers. We did 350 of them, which for our size institution was a good size, but I think a manageable size. So we also received our first approval today as well from the SBA. I think their portal is working well. We haven't really experienced any problems with latency or anything when submitting the applications. And really, we wanted to keep them and make sure that we maintain those loans because it's a good touch point with the customers to let them know that loan is forgiven. There's a really good conversation. We primarily did our customers with the PPP loans, but there probably was 20% non-customers that we've successfully converted, most of them to customers, which could pay off down the road. And I think that they were very happy that they weren't getting the attention really from their current bank at that point. So when we were able to do the loan for them, they were happy to switch banks.
That's great, Frank. And to get 20% new customers throughout this process is a fantastic statistic. And to be able to already have 25% of your loans through the forgiveness process, trust me, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. So hats off to First Colonial for doing that. Great job. Great job. Jennifer, a lot of volume at Customers Bank from the fintechs as well as the core bank with PPP. How are you handling the forgiveness process and what have you learned so far?
So yeah, with regards to the fintechs, we're monitoring their forgiveness process. It's not something that we have to physically work on here at Customers Bank, but we do have this pocket of customers that we need to do forgiveness for, our own customers, as well as we did acquire many other customers through this process, like we just said. So I think what we learned was when we were going through the PPP process, the initial one, we saw so much opportunity of how we could take advantage of the tools that we have on the shelf for the forgiveness process. So we in fact did that. We took Salesforce Experience Portal, which we had in a sandbox environment, started playing around with it. We have control of that customer experience through the forgiveness process. We did a lot of work with data integration and APIs with Salesforce. So our forgiveness process is completely a Salesforce to core based process. We basically ask the customers to log into our experience portal, all that documentation everybody knows they have to provide. Oh my God, sifting through all of that. Our lenders have been very open-minded with, monitoring that and making sure that the right documentation is put through. But after that step, we pull the data, now that it's digitized per se in the Salesforce platform, we can pull all that data, put it into the SBA forms that they want to see it in, reduce all the manual entry that it took, during the PPP process, put that into the DocuSign document, send that back out to the customer, have those conversations with the customer about forgiveness and timing. And then we as well, we coded right to the SBA API because there was no way we were going to be able to manually enter all of those. So yeah, we basically get the data back, the confirmation from the customer, submit it on off, and away we go. So we made a lot of strides with end-to-end digitization. during this forgiveness process that, you know, I can't believe we did it in this short time frame.
So Jen, you know, it's great, the key learnings, right? What you couldn't do for the application process, you changed for the forgiveness process. And you know, just as Zach was talking about being an agile type of company, you were able to pivot and make those adjustments to digitize the process.
And I would just say a suggestion to folks out there, you know, that are having that issue where you realize you've got to reskill people and move people into a mindset of swarming on a problem like that. You know, we have a digital transformation office, and we've set that up so that it has kind of that mindset. So those same people that worked on PPP original loan, you know, just came back together again, immediately started working on the forgiveness process, learned what we could do, and then quickly deployed. So if you start to get people's mindset to change and maybe set up that kind of office, maybe as a little innovation lab on the side, because, you know, some banks aren't you know, ready for that yet. It really paid off in spades this year.
That's awesome. And I know, Jen, I know you've talked about the agile environment you're trying to create there at Customers Bank. I guess that, you know, listening to the others, it really has accelerated, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, when we introduced Agile, probably like a year ago, everybody thinks of it as an IT term. And it really isn't. It's a mindset of being able to get a team focused on an issue, a problem, something you need to solve, and then quickly deliver value, quickly deliver the solution. It was a mindset change, but I really think that it paid off for us. And it's still, you know, we're still pulling people along in that process, I will tell you. It's a culture change for bankers in general. Our industry is it's just the way it is. And I'm glad that people are open-minded and changing and realizing that we need to pivot fast now. We have no choice.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, we're going to turn our attention now to what a lot of us consider our greatest asset, which is basically our team members, our employees. And they've been significantly impacted by COVID, by PPP, by everything that's happened in the past 7 months. So Jen, I'll start quickly with you. I know that you mentioned before about how your teams have reskilled, but talk to us about, you know, have your teams adjusted to being remote and creating a mobile workforce over the past 7 months? And what do you see the biggest challenge for the team members right now?
I would say, first of all, I commended our team, you know, in being able to go remote so quickly. We kind of were in environments like that already. So it wasn't a hard, you know, it was a hurdle for them. But I would say that our team members, I think that, wait, repeat the question, because I'm sorry. I had a thought in my head and it just went out.
No, I mean, how have they adjusted? What's their biggest challenge? You know,
the challenge, that's what I was, yeah, because I just had this conversation with folks. So when we go remote, I found that having a lot more one-on-one video calls with folks, and I encouraged that with the team to keep people engaged. Engagement was key. If we're not engaged, we're not getting things done. Here most is people miss those little conversations that you used to have in the hallways, you know, or in the kitchen or the cafe area, and you would kind of get clued into some things that you didn't know were going on around the organization just because you just weren't in those meetings. That's what I hear the most, and you know, that's a challenge for everybody. I don't know how you recreate that in this environment.
No, great feedback. I agree. You know, Frank, thanks, Jen. Frank, going over to First Colonial, you know, a smaller organization. How have your team members adapted to being remote? And I think you've changed some of that since COVID started. And what do you think the biggest challenge has been so far?
Yeah, so we were remote in the beginning of it for the first couple months, and I think just being efficient, really remote, was some of the challenge that some of our team members were having. We really didn't have much of a remote workforce prior to then, and really just the ability with not having a loan origination system, not having kind of still working in kind of a semi-paper environment. Not everything was accessible electronic. So, I mean, we're definitely, there were takeaways that we're going to accelerate the need for a loan origination system. And really, we brought all of our team members back on May 11th. So we had a smaller core team that pretty much was in the office throughout, remaining socially distanced and kind of, having conference calls as opposed to getting together. But what we saw during that really busy time with PPP and rolling out a loan deferral program and really trying to risk rate the loan portfolio to make sure that everyone knew that kind of we were in this together and that we just wanted to have communication to make sure we knew who was really having challenges. Most of our lenders were requesting to come back in, even if that was off hours, just so there was, less people in the office at a time. But in the middle of May, we did bring pretty much the majority of the workforce back, and knock on wood, everything's been going well and able to operate. We're still being flexible with team members that need to be flexible with challenges with homes, with remote learning and things like that. But we did find it that most people were looking to kind of, we had a team-based approach to have limited people here, but then we have had the majority of our workforce back since the middle of May.
Frank, interesting, because it seems like even though you came back with a different flow. So you came back with that team-based approach, maybe teams that work together different times to make sure everybody was still protected. But in order to make sure everybody was engaged, they wanted, seems like your lenders, they wanted to be back in there for that engagement. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct. And it has worked out well so far, and knock on wood, kind of, keep all of the PPE stuff here and make sure that we're still remaining socially distanced, everybody's wearing masks. And, but yeah, so, and it has changed the way we look at things, that we do have, more flexibility, I think, with people working remotely and things like that. And kind of down the road, how much space do we need? Can certain departments work better remotely than others? So I do think it will be beneficial going forward.
Excellent. Frank, thanks for sharing that. Dee, how about from Orrstown's perspective and your perspective about team member engagement?
Yeah, we've had a lot of the same issues. We fortunately have a virtual desktop infrastructure here at Orrstown. So with any personal device or company provided device, we have the virtual desktop that has greatly allowed us to have over 80% of our workforce working from home pretty seamlessly. Our biggest challenges have really been personal home internet providers, people not used to using the teleconferencing tools of Zoom and WebEx. And I mean, we've been through our gamut of trying each one of those providers and the struggles that we all have had with those. So those have been challenging. As far as the team engagement and those kind of water cooler discussions, we, with my team especially, we've done some social hours where, from 5 to 6, grab a beer and jump on and let's just talk about our personal lives and the weather and, whatever that may look like, because you don't have that kind of conversation as much when you're working from home as you do in the office, passing by the kitchen or whatever it may be.
That's excellent. And I think that's a great way to keep everybody engaged and relaxed and also to help them deal with the stress. I mean, there is a lot of stress from working remotely and from being at home and with, all the care, whether it's elder care, child care, your own care, it's mentally and physically stressful. So that's a great approach. It's a great approach. Zach, how about from Fulton Bank's perspective? What have you guys done with team members, engagement? What's the biggest challenge that Fulton's seeing with their teams?
Yeah, I mean, much like Dee, we had invested over the years in an environment that allowed us to transition to remote work pretty quickly. And we had very few issues there. I think we went through a couple of waves. I think we transitioned everyone remotely kind of without issue. And then as that started to drag on, we had employees that needed multiple monitors, right? They didn't have necessarily the equipment at home, so they needed to get 2 monitors just because of their job. So, we went through and figured out ways to start to enable some of that for employees that needed it. One of the biggest challenges we had was moving our call center, our calls to a remote we have a call center there in East Petersburg, and it took us, it was a project that was on the list for that year, but we had to kind of get that done very quickly to allow for a remote call center. And, for us, much like what Dee said, for me, the biggest challenge with the teams has really been non-work related things. I mean, we've adopted, we've done more of an adoption to video calls, and, we've increased and ramped up our daily stand-ups and things like that have happened. But, much like what Dee said, it's, oh, my connection at home is rough. I'm working from home. My wife's working from home, and I got 2 kids going to school, sitting on Zoom meetings. And so, certain hours of the day, connection going down, things like that. So just working through that with team members, for me, it's just been a foundation of flexibility. Has kind of been my personal, goal through this, is just to let the team members know, hey, I know that we've all got something going on. I know for my team personally, I'm not at all worried that I'm going to be getting less than 40 hours a week out of folks. And a lot of these folks feel like they're actually working more remotely, because they've given up their travel time back and forth. And but if something pops up during the day, these are just extreme circumstances. If you got to take your kid to the doctor, you got to do, go ahead and do that, and we'll support you through that, and we'll get the time. And I think that has helped people feel more comfortable and feel more engaged and more appreciative.
I love that phrase, Zach, foundational flexibility. And I think that that's critical. And if that's, Fulton's approach, I think it's the right approach, because like you said, I think people feel they're never leaving the office now because their home is their office. So to give them flexibility throughout the day to go out, get some things done, and spend time with the family, take care of things, because they're coming back in at night to do things. I think it's a great approach. It's a great approach. So Zach, I'm going to stay with you. And, we talked about team members, we talked about PPP. Let's talk about customer engagement. And, digital engagement with customers, it's not optional anymore. So how has Fulton digitally engaged with your customers during COVID? And do you really think that our customers' behavior has changed and will change permanently because of this?
Yeah, so I think I'll hit that second question first, and then we'll kind of back into the first one. But do I think our customers' behavior has changed from a digital perspective? I think absolutely. I mean, when you think about digital engagement, it's really adoption of digital services. I think the easiest one to use as an example, just because I believe every bank is probably feeling it, is remote deposit capture. And if you look at the use of remote deposit capture across your customer base, I'm sure that has skyrocketed. And I'm trying to think, what is the event that will happen? Well, first of all, why do you think customers weren't using remote deposit capture before? It's not because it was less convenient. I mean, why would you drive to a financial center to cash a check? Why would you, why would you put yourself through that when you have a digital option to just take a picture of your check and have the funds available to you? It was just lack of awareness, having never done it before. Now we just forced our entire customer base to basically adopt this. Sure. There will be no event that goes back and says, hey, start driving to the branch again. Stop doing that digital thing that takes you 15 seconds. Do the thing that takes you 15, 20 minutes. They're not going to go back to that. I really do believe that a large percentage of this digital adoption that we're seeing will persist. Now, where some of that may not hold true is, as more and more businesses start to open, more of the e-commerce might back off a little bit. You've seen the spike in e-commerce. Some of that might back off a little bit and go back into the brick and mortar stores. But when you think through that, you think about the impact to our financial centers as far as traffic. You think about the impact of what services do we offer that we do not have digital options for? And those are things that we need to be focusing on. We've got DocuSign. We've got, like I've mentioned, all of these other technologies that we already had available to us at Fulton. And the way we're looking at it is, I don't necessarily need to go out and acquire new technology. I don't necessarily need to go out right now and acquire new digital capabilities. I need to look at the digital capabilities I have and get deeper penetration of those capabilities within the organization. Why aren't all of my documents DocuSign enabled? Why aren't all of my account opening processes automated to the point that the customer doesn't need to walk into a branch? when I think of customer servicing, why do I still have processes that require a manual touch point between the customer and a bank employee in order to start that workflow? And those are the areas that we want to target and will continue to target to make sure that we're digitally enabling the bank and making it more convenient for the customer in the future.
Zach, I love your point about deeper penetration and adoption. And I think we all struggle. You know, you think about adoption of, like you said, your customers with remote deposit capture, but it's really also the adoption of our team members with technology that we have internally. And why aren't they adopting it? And how can we make sure that they do adopt it? So I think that deeper penetration of the tools we have in place is critical to the success of engagement with our customers moving forward.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Dee, from Orrstown's perspective, customer engagement, you know, what's changed? How about behaviors of your customer base? A little different than Zach's, but somewhat similar.
A lot of similarities. We have seen remote deposit capture. The adoption of mobile and online banking has gone up. Like Zach said, why weren't they? Scared, change, all those things, right? I know from a personal experience with going to the grocery store. I do grocery pickup now. Why didn't I do that before? Why would I go back to shopping in the grocery store after the fact? So behaviors have changed. They will continue to change. And I think it forced a lot of people to embrace that change that they were scared of before. And now we have an opportunity to maximize that. We rolled out an online banking platform during this chaos, and introduced secure chat, which I think was a huge plus for us during this process. So we're engaging a lot of our clients through secure chat, not just through our call center, not just through our digital avenues, but that's one more thing that we added on to help with that digital conversations with our clients.
So like you said, you rolled out a new online banking during this chaos, but you actually rolled out tools that probably helped through this chaos with secure chat. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I take it the online banking conversion was planned before COVID?
It was. We deferred it a little bit. We pushed it a month or two to kind of get through the SBA PPP stuff, but it was a good, it kind of secured and synced up our online and mobile platforms better. So it was a nice move for us and a nice move for our clients.
Excellent. Dee, thanks for sharing. Frank, how about from your perspective, digital engagement with your customer base? Did it change? How did it change? And then where do you see the behaviors being permanently changed?
Yeah, very similar to what Zach and Dee said. Pick up in remote deposit capture, more people adopting online banking. They're the main things, and I very key with the adoption and kind of penetration of products and just how do we take it to kind of really get those adoption rates up. They were the big changes. I mean, really not that much different. I mean, we don't have the ability to open up accounts online right now, so that was something that was on the roadmap that we're pushing our core provider right now, FIS, to try to get that rolled out quicker. One thing that we do kind of like a concierge banking is we'll go to the customer, try to let the customer bank the way they want to bank. We have most of the digital products. We don't have the online account creation right now, but we'll have our relationship managers or business development people kind of go to the customer with the paperwork to get the account open in the interim until we can do it fully electronically. And that has worked during the last couple months. I mean, our lobbies remained open throughout. Our branches did open back up the beginning of June. But we do have more of a mobile workforce that's kind of going to the customer to get those accounts open.
Okay. Excellent. And so that technology is going to help you with that engagement down the road, being able to take the bank to the customer instead of the customer coming to you.
Coming in, correct.
Yeah. Good. Frank, thanks. Thanks for that viewpoint. Appreciate it. Jennifer, how about from your and Customers Bank perspective about digital engagement? What's changed? Where do you see the behaviors changing?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say that we've seen increase in remote deposit capture. 150% more transactions are flowing through those channels, especially our mobile business capture, which was a product we rolled out during this time and couldn't have come at a better time. We also, we have a platform that we launched this year. It actually was accelerated for opening business accounts digitally.
Okay.
And the reason it was taking so long, because there's a lot of platforms out there that will sell you, that will say, oh yeah, you can open an account. We wanted it integrated into our core. So we knew that was going to be a project. So we were able to accelerate that and get that out during this kind of PPP crisis period, and actually market a deposit account to those businesses, especially the new ones that we acquired during this process. And as of today, we're seeing about 70% of those business accounts that we would normally see open through our branch channels or relationship management channels come through this digital platform. Wow. I think people find it pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
So I don't see that changing. What I do see changing about that is just changing up the customer experience, because, we're learning about what they like about it, what they don't like, and, just embarking on that journey to improve the experience. But I don't see that ever changing. I think businesses, especially, ones that are up and coming and maybe the ones that need a little bit more help, like the small business, they need it easy, fast, and frictionless. And that's what we're focused on now. So that's one of the big changes that we saw through this.
Jennifer, great viewpoint on the small business customer. And I know you talked earlier about the PPP forgiveness process with the Salesforce Experience Cloud. Are you leveraging Salesforce now and any other technology tools for this new customer experience for the small business customer?
Actually, yes, we are. They're in plans. It's not in effect yet, but we learned through the PPP forgiveness process more about these tools, this experience portal, API connections, Code Connect, all of that with our core. And we said, hey, can we take that and apply it to other things in our organization that we could get that efficiency out of and make a much better customer experience? And that's exactly what we're doing now. We have a kind of focused team, agile team, I will say, focused on that experience and working through those journeys so that we can use the Salesforce Experience Portal and our other, nCino tools to really increase that adoption of that digital channel for our customers. They really seem to like it. I mean, 70% of those accounts that normally would have been opened, just the old fashioned way, I mean, they're really adopting.
That's fantastic. That's great. So last question for the panelists, and Jen, you just may have touched on the answer for you and your organization. In regards to digital transformation and the roadmap, like what's next from a top priority standpoint? Not everything, but what would be that top priority for digital transformation for Customers Bank?
I would say we have two top priorities. One, we're focused on the customer experience. You can bite off a lot with digital transformation and try to do it all. And we just have decided to focus our efforts and our teams on that experience. And then as we started to focus on it, you could see things down the line, that end-to-end digitization, it just falls into place. So that's really our top priority. And then the second priority, or almost the same priorities, are team member experiences. So you can use some of the tools that you have internally or take a look at other tools to improve your team members' experiences, saving them time and effort. I mean, that time and effort that was saved with the team that rolled out Experience Portal and the whole rollout for forgiveness, I mean, we saved people a week almost of rekeying in data and all of that. So those are the two, the customer experience and team member experience.
Great priorities, Jen. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, from your perspective, what's next for digital transformation? Top priority, one or two?
Yeah, and I think I touched on them before. I mean, we redid our core contract with FIS back It was in line to be done during this time anyway, but we accelerated that to get it executed quicker, just to be able to get in line for certain products to make sure that we can roll them out earlier in 2021. Online account creation, a better business electronic banking product, and really all about customer experience, like Jen said. I mean, this is, we want to really be able to make sure that the customer can bank however they want. If they still want to come into the branch, they're welcome to. We can go to them, and then to make sure that we have the technology that they're able to do it all digitally. It's been like so quick the last 6 months, but it's also giving you some time to kind of look at how are you doing things and to create more efficiencies for team members on the backside, like Jen had said as well. Certain processes before that you would think, and it would just take longer to implement change, the ability to adapt quicker. I think that's one thing that COVID has kind of, taught all of us, that you kind of have to be able to adapt pretty quickly.
Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense, Frank. I love the priorities. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Dee, from Morristown's perspective, I know we touched on a lot, but what are the top 1 or 2 things on the digital transformation roadmap?
Yeah, we recently formed a subcommittee of folks, and we looked at our top 3 strategies, which is really frictionless client experience. Data is the second, providing the right data to the right folks at the right time. And then the third is operational excellence. And all 3 of those things are very overlapping and encompassing. But when you stand back and look at those 3 strategies, we're really looking at not only the products that we have in-house, but our solutions that are out there that can take us and modernize that client experience and that open API and frictionless to be able to transfer data among solutions and provide one view of our client to all lines of business. And incorporating that operational excellence for our internal clients, my internal clients being in technology, are, my lending folks, my finance folks, and looking at those processes and making sure that they are efficient and as effective as they can be to allow them to build relationships with our clients. So there's our top 3 strategy, and we're kind of dreaming right now. What does that mean? What does that look like over the next 5 years to us?
No, that's awesome. I think you're right on target, and I love the frictionless piece. That's great. Dee, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Zach, last but not least, where do you see that roadmap going for Fulton? Top couple priorities.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what everyone said. I think everyone kind of hit the nail on the head. For us, when we think about digital, we really think about digital through the customer lens, but that permeates all the way back to the back office. So our focus is really looking at those digital interactions with our customers, identifying where there is friction, whether that friction be in the customer experience or whether that friction be in the back office experience and the handoff, and really trying to implement operational excellence or process improvement to ensure that we're reducing the cycle time, reducing the defect rate for any of those processes as much as humanly possible. So really focusing on the customer experience through the digital lens and identifying that customer experience from the process from that customer touch point all the way back through the back office and back to the customer.
So end to end. That makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Great. Zach, thank you. Thank you. Folks, I want to thank today's panelists for sharing their experiences and best practices with our community of peer banks and credit unions. I think this information has been invaluable, and we really do appreciate your time. The Fortimize team would like to thank all of you who joined today's call, and I think we can all agree that digital engagement, it's no longer an option. It's an opportunity to innovate and transform banking. Our team at Fortimize guides our customers through digital transformations with a proven roadmap to help senior leaders like who are here today to make better strategic decisions and evolve into the bank of tomorrow today. So please make sure to reach out to one of our client advisors at Fortimize, or stick around or send us a quick note and we'll schedule a call to follow up. Our next event in the Fortimize Focus series is scheduled for Wednesday, November 18th. We hope you'll join us to continue to learn and be a part of our community. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists, and hope everybody makes it a great day. Take care.